Hey guys, welcome to Sustaining Food for Thought. I'm Esperanza, and today I'm going to be walking you through how I make my freshly milled whole wheat bread. So without further ado, let's make some bread. I want to start by noting that the recipe I use is a large recipe, big enough to make 5 or even 6 loaves of bread, and will therefore require a mixer that is bigger than a KitchenAid. Now for the making of the bread, start by milling 6 cups of wheat berries. I use hard white wheat berries, but this recipe is also good for hard red. Once all your wheat berries are milled, set the flour aside for a few minutes while you start on the next part of the process. To your mixer, add 6 cups of warm water, 1 1/4 cups of olive oil or a mix of olive and sunflower oil, and 3/4 a cup of honey. Next, add all of your freshly milled flour and a scant 4 tablespoons of yeast. Mix all of these ingredients together until well blended, scraping down the sides as necessary. Next, you will let this sit for around 16 to 20 minutes. This process is called sponging. While the dough is sponging, mill another 5 cups of wheat berries. This will be added after the time of rest. Alright, so this is my dough after 16 minutes. You can see it has risen a lot, any longer than this, and it's going to be coming out of the top. So I'm going to go ahead and just turn the mixer on and let it go back down. Here you will add your 2 tablespoons of salt to the dough before adding the flour. I forgot this step while doing the process, so I added the salt in between adding the flour, but really you want the salt on the bottom so that it will get mixed in really well. Once you measure out your salt, you can start adding the flour on top of this. I usually like to mix in the flour a few cups at a time instead of putting all of the flour in at once, because the mixer is so full that it will push the flour out of the sides and kind of make a mess. So I usually just start mixing the flour in a few cups at a time. Once all of the flour is incorporated, you're going to set a timer and mix the dough at medium speed for 5 minutes. Okay, after the 5 minutes of mixing, your dough is ready to make into loaves. Sometimes it seems like it's a little sticky, but once you get oil on your hands, you should be okay. You don't really want to add more flour than this or it's going to make it too tough. So it's like it feels a little bit sticky, but after you get working with the oil and making your loaves, it is generally fine and I don't have to add any more flour. Make sure to oil your workspace as well as your hands as you work with the dough, and remember to grease your bread pans or baking sheets. For the shaping of my loaves, I like to pat my dough out into rectangular flat shapes. I then bring the two sides together by pinching them and then do likewise with the two ends. This technique results in a nicely formed loaf with a smooth top on the other side. Once your loaves are in a pan, cover with a towel and allow it to rise for 10 to 20 minutes depending on the temperature of your house. Okay, so these are my loaves after just 10 minutes of rising. Mine rise pretty quickly because our house is warmer, but once again, same thing for any type of rising thing. It depends on how warm your house is. These things are ready to pop into the oven at 350 for 25 to 30 minutes. Mine generally are at about 25, and our oven actually cooks really hot. So I actually move it down to 325. So you'll just have to kind of play around with your oven temperature. Here's the finished product. I only made 4 loaves today, but I did have extra dough and I just threw that in the freezer because sometimes we like to have it on hand to just pull out, defrost, and make something like pizza or monkey bread or cinnamon rolls, something like that. So this recipe is big enough for 5 or 6 loaves, but sometimes I'll just take some of that dough out and set it aside for a different day. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing this process. I hope you learned something, and happy bread making.